Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a very special guest. This is Dr. Spindelilus, and he is going to be taking your questions. And for those of you that missed several interviews I did with, we'll call him Doc. I did 2 interviews with him. The first interview, we were just talking in general about his practice and raw food diet and his lifestyle and what he's doing. And then we did another interview about Lyme disease, and specifically Lyme disease. And we also spoke a little about the importance of juicing. And you can see both of those on my channel that I did last week and the week before. But Doc was so generous to come and take some live Q&A, because I know a lot of you really appreciated the videos and what he had to say. And for those of you that are sick or have a disease or know somebody who does, we'll take some questions tonight. I have all the links below for Doc and how to contact him. He has a book as well. He also has some other videos you could find under his name under YouTube. Now, I do want to say that much of my audience is already into eating a healthy raw vegan diet. If you're not, one of the first things Doc recommends, and I'm in agreement with, is to get your immune system built up and start eating healthier. So if you know somebody who's sick or you're sick and you're not eating healthy, well, this is a big part of the healing. So it's kind of interesting. Before we get started, as we're waiting for you here, please post your questions, everybody. But it's interesting because there are many different diseases, but there's really a standard way to healing all of them. Basically, there's a good formula, but at the same time, each person has their own unique situation. So it's really good to do a personal consultation if you can with somebody like Doc for your unique situation, because even though the basic methods are the same, there's a lot more for your individual situation. It might be important. And something that I've been saying for years, and I heard Dr. Spindelilus say also in a recent video was, or not a past video was, there's no incurable disease, only incurable people. And so this is really good to know. So if you have questions, whether they're major diseases or whether the beginning questions about just health in general, Doc's going to take over and answer these questions. I'm going to read the questions to him, and then he'll do his best to answer those. So we have a couple of questions we're starting out with now. But before we get into the questions, Doc, is there anything you want to say before we get started with the questions?
Well, real quickly for you, just to elaborate what you said, the saying that you just gave was by a world-renowned naturopathic doctor, Dr. John Christopher. And I will always be indebted to him. He was the core of my teaching before I went on to medical school. And he did say, there's no such thing as incurable diseases and only incurable people. And what he meant was, how far are you willing to go? How far are you willing to commit to being your own healer? I tell pretty much just about all my patients, you have this wonderful blueprint for healing inside of you if you'll just give the body what it needs. And unfortunately, so many people make decisions based on fear, very often inspired by their other doctors, that this such and such disease is incurable. And I have not worked with the condition. I'm not touting my own self. I'm saying this is just in general what a lot more doctors today are finding. I haven't found a disease that can't be cured yet. It just depends on how far the patient is willing to take ownership and take responsibility for it.
Okay. With that being said, I invite you all to ask your questions. And we're going to start off with a question from Lori's asking, after drinking or eating citrus, how long soon after do we brush our teeth?
Okay, that's Lori. Okay, that was a great question. I've gotten that one quite a bit. It really depends on what your overall diet is like. Okay, and I know that you're probably not like that because you're watching the show in the first place. But for example, a lot of Western culture, United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, they eat SAD, the standard American diet. All right, which means your gums aren't healthy, your teeth are probably not healthy. And so when you drink citrus, and again, it depends on the type of citrus. For example, for myself, every morning, 7 days a week, 365, I drink fresh squeezed orange juice, fresh squeezed that moment. I drink fresh orange juice. All right, and we get our oranges from the farmer's market. So every morning I drink that, and I don't brush my teeth afterwards. I don't wash my mouth out because I'm a raw vegan, and I know that I've been this way for years, and I know my health and my immune system. And so I know that I'm okay doing it. Now, for other people, yeah, I've heard other people say, well, they get around it by using a straw. All right. And others will generally, it's not a bad idea to kind of, after you're done drinking your orange juice, usually within about 15 minutes to go, just swish your mouth out if you're not a healthy eater. But I've generally found that it doesn't cause damage. A lot of raw vegans are saying, yeah, if I have too much fruit, it damages my gums, damages my teeth. I've just not found that to be true. Where so many raw vegans, and I know this by personal experience, where so many raw vegans end up with gum issues, it's usually because they substitute too many nuts. They eat too many nuts, too many cashews, and too many of these other nuts. And you got to remember that nuts are a concentrated food, and they're great, but they're meant to be in small proportions. When I first started studying medicine, I was taught almonds are wonderful, but no more than just a few in your hand, just no more than a handful, in a very small handful. And that's what usually causes damage. But where people start getting damaged by juices is because it's the concentrated juices. They're buying the stuff from the grocery store and not doing it on their own. That tends to damage your teeth.
Okay. I'm just trying to log into Facebook as well while we're waiting here. So let's see.
But great question, Laurie. Great question.
Great question. Okay. So the next question we have is, hold on one second. Let me get into the Facebook screen. Okay. Next question is, what should we eat if we suffer from GERD, acid reflux?
That's a long answer, but I'm going to make it short, as short as I can. GERD. Okay. We've actually, within our practice, we've been extremely successful with GERD. We've actually had a lot of other doctors send their patients to us. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you what we do. And this is an explanation for treating what GERD really is. All right. I've been in the medical industry now since 1999. All right. And I have never, ever, and I know some will argue with me on this, but I have never, ever found a patient who makes too much stomach acid. Never once, certainly here in America, and certainly not down in Guatemala also, but I've never, ever had a patient that makes too much stomach acid. What they do is two things happen. One of the most common conditions in America is hypochlorhydria, which is low stomach acid. Low stomach acid is epidemic in this country because most Americans are mineral deficient, and one of the most important minerals in this instance is zinc. You use zinc for a variety of reasons. One of those is to make hydrochloric acid. So if you're eating a standard American diet, almost guaranteed you're going to be low on zinc. Therefore, you're going to be low on stomach acid and you're going to get upset. Think about it. If you're not breaking down your food properly and it gets down in your stomach, it's going to sit there. And what happens to food when it's warm and moist and nothing happens with it? It doesn't break. What happens? It ferments. All right. That's one issue of GERD. But the other that makes people go, well, I've got this acid reflux, so it's too much acid. And it's not. What, again, in my experience, 100% of the time is if my hand is your stomach and here's your esophagus, at the top, we have the cardia or esophageal sphincter and the pyloric down here. This sphincter right here, this little valve is the problem, not the stomach acid. That actually closes and keeps stomach acid from going back up into your esophagus. All right. When you were 12 years old or 10 years old, that thing would close so tight you couldn't put anything through it. It would hold everything in, but it's a muscle. And as you get older, and this doesn't have to happen, but as you get older, that muscle gets weaker. And so instead of closing tight, there might be little tiny gap in it that is just not quite closing. So even what little stomach acid you're making, it will leak out and it will start burning into the esophagus. And so the standard knee-jerk reaction is, esophageal reflux, yes, you've got acid reflux, and you're making too much acid. And so what do? They give you a protein pump inhibitor or whatnot to make you make even less stomach acid. Well, what is one of the things that they teach us in med school and now they're doing on commercials? We're giving you a PPI with calcium, all right, because they know that if you take habitually an antacid or a protein pump inhibitor, which stops you from making stomach acid, you will not properly break down your nutrients and you will become calcium deficient. All right, so now they're saying, oh, we'll give it with calcium, but of course that doesn't work because they don't give it along with magnesium and the other supportive minerals that you need to digest it. So what really is happening is most Americans are actually low on stomach acid. And a good clue for that is this. First of all, when you get a boo-boo, all right, does it heal well and fast or is it slow? And a lot of people say, oh, I'm getting this digestive upset. Well, there's a good clue. When you eat your food, does the digestive upset occur within an hour or after an hour? Usually 45 minutes to an hour, the food is already emptying out of your stomach. So if you're getting upset within sometimes 1 minute, sometimes 45 minutes, then it's in your stomach and that's the problem, not the rest of the digestive tract. So what we do is we work on your stomach acid levels and we work on that esophageal sphincter to help it close again, to close properly. And then lo and behold, the acid reflux, GERD all goes away. It's not too much stomach acid.
Okay. So hopefully that answered your question. Thank you. The next question we have is, have you seen double vision problems from MS healed on a raw diet?
Oh, not me personally, because of being on a raw diet. Again, we have to be careful. It's kind of like saying being a vegan is a healthy lifestyle. It is, and it's supposed to be, but there are bad vegans and there are good vegans. So that there can be bad raw foodies and good raw foodies. Is your diet balanced? You know, are you only eating bananas and nothing else but that? Or are you making sure?
Don't worry about that. Okay, go.
Okay, no worries. Are you making sure that you have a very well-balanced diet? And then you have to put something else into the formula. What else is going on in your life? Is there a family history of double vision issues? Do you have a history of it, beforehand? What's your age? What kind of strain do you put on your eyes? What kind of occupation do you have? So I personally have never had patients that are raw foodies have an issue with double vision, but I have had patients with double vision issues because of other factors, like the pharmaceuticals they're on, and things of that nature. I had one patient years ago. She came to me because she had double vision. And I examined her, I went through everything, and then finally I found out what it was, because there was no organic reason, no biological reason I could find that she had double vision. Until during the intake, I found out that her doctor had her on Ritalin. I said, well, one of the side effects is blurry or double vision. She immediately ran back to her other doctor, told him, he went, oh, I didn't know that, took her off of it, her vision cleared up. So there's usually a lot of different reasons. She needed a good intake to decide that.
Okay. Another question is, sorry, I'm moving around there. I was trying to add it to Facebook, but it didn't work out. So that somebody said, do you get threats from pharmaceutical companies as a natural doctor?
Do I get what? Wrecked?
Threats.
Oh, we actually have had them come to our clinic trying to get us to take on their medications and use them with their patients. And fortunately, they don't see me as a very big threat. And I'm under a totally different licensure, so they can't really come after me. For example, in the state of California, an MD cannot treat cancer alternatively, but I can. They'll lose their license. I won't. And so generally they don't bother me, and we just leave each other alone.
Okay. Have chronic insomnia even on a raw vegan diet. I have not slept more than 10 or 20 minutes a night.
Okay. All right. Chronic insomnia. Okay. That actually it's probably good, depending on what your diet is. It's probably good that you're raw, but here's one of the problems with chronic insomnia. And I'm one of those that used to be that way. There is a condition, remember how I talked about hypochlorhydria? I mean, low stomach acid is a common condition in America. Also, another common condition is hypoadrenia. All right, because we're talking about insomnia, right, Paul? Okay, insomnia. Okay. What I always ask, and unfortunately, and maybe you can answer this while we're talking. When I have a patient that comes to me with chronic insomnia, I usually ask them two questions. Okay, question number one is, when you go to bed, do you fall asleep okay? So that would be the first question. Do you have any problem initially falling asleep? All right, so maybe they'll answer that. Okay, and the second question then follows that. Do you have a tendency to wake up during the night and then can't fall back to sleep? Okay, these usually indicate hypoadrenia, which means low adrenal function. A lot of people know it by its common term of chronic fatigue syndrome. Adrenal fatigue is probably one of the most common. Okay, real quickly for you. Our adrenal glands are like two little hats that sit on top of our kidneys. They produce a wide amount of different kind of hormones. All right. And two of those that are important to us are cortisol, okay, which helps with your sleep cycle as well, and DHEA. Now, most Americans and most other Western nations do not use their adrenals properly. So I'm going to give you my little famous saber-tooth tiger story. Take yourself and kind of put yourself 10,000 years ago, and you're walking along the Great Plains with your big spear. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, here comes a saber-tooth tiger and attacks. Hopefully you're with your buds, and you get this adrenal rush. The epinephrine turns adrenaline, and boom, it's fight or flight. Do you run or do you fight? Well, all goes well. 5 minutes later, you're alive, you're safe, and the adrenaline goes down. Next day, you're walking along with your buds, and up comes a woolly mammoth. Flight's probably a good idea. All goes well. 5 minutes later, you survived. It goes down. That's what our adrenals were meant for. But today, in this society, is unnatural and disconnected with the world, with nature, and just simply imbalanced. We don't ground. We don't eat right. So many other things. You're under a constant amount of stress. Okay, so your adrenals don't know the difference between an angry boss or spouse or partner or a multitude of other things. All it knows is, hey, the cave you're living in is surrounded by saber-tooth tigers. You need to move. You need to get out of there. So what happens is as this goes on, your adrenals become exhausted. They start being depleted and putting out the amount of cortisol, DHEA, and you start having, with your sleep cycle becomes imbalanced and you can't sleep. So we have treatments for it. But one of the things I tell patients is, if we treat you for this, you're going to sleep better. But eventually we're going to want you to not have to need a doctor anymore. If you don't find out what are those triggers, what's causing those problems, and you don't find a way to cope or resolve them, eventually it's going to creep back in again. Now, having said all that about hypoadrenia, about adrenal fatigue, the other possibility, okay, and it's not that common with patients, but it does happen. Are you a chronic wearer of sunglasses? If you wear sunglasses too often, then it puts your circadian clock out, and it doesn't know. Your brain is supposed to take serotonin at night and turn it into the pineal gland and turn it into melatonin. If you're always indoors or you're wearing sunglasses too often, you lose that circadian cycle and you'll have a problem sleeping. But 99% of the time, it's because of long, unending, unresolved stress is what causes it.
Sure. So, and that's really needs to be addressed, because I don't know how long this person's been sleeping only 10, 20 minutes a night, but that's definitely not a good situation.
Well, if you're only sleeping 10, 20 minutes a night, and this has been going on extensive period of time, people like that can eventually have a psychotic break. You have to dream, you have to sleep. And if you don't, then you're going to have some very serious issues. So then the question is, and I don't agree with doing this, but the question would be, have you ever taken melatonin and it helped? I don't agree with taking melatonin, but the question would be, have you ever taken melatonin and it helped? If it did help, then we have a serotonin issue most likely. All right. And so now we have to look, has this person been under extensive depression, for a long period of time? Because that'll just burn right through your serotonin. So that's why it's always good to do a bit of an intake.
Now, I know you're as natural as possible. Do you ever recommend in a situation like, of course, if this is a couple of weeks, it's one thing, but if this is a much longer, like you said, not only can it mess with the mind, but also the body, would you ever recommend until the problem's figured out, anything to do like with sedatives or anything like that, or never?
Well, we've been involved in that before, but fortunately, I guess I could say fortunately, as I mentioned, I think in our very first video that we did, most of the time that patients come to me, it's as a last resort. So they already have been on these drugs and they may be on them and they want to get off of them. They're not working perfect, or they're working, but they know what they're doing to their liver. And we always tell patients, if you come in with a pharmaceutical, you have to stay on the pharmaceutical so that you can be slowly weaned off of it, as you heal. So there are rare occurrences where, to protect the psychological health of a patient, sure, that can happen, but it's not that common. Usually they come to me and they were already on something by that point.
Sure. Okay. Completely different question. What's your opinion on nightshades and what are they?
I have gotten that one so many times. That's a great question too. I love tomatoes and such. I'll be honest with you. The web is a wonderful thing. Really, the internet's great. But unfortunately, there is so much conflicting information. There are a few people out there, okay, they're not that common, but there are a few people out there that are sensitive to nightshades. They're sensitive to walnuts and things of that nature. There's a wonderful phrase was given by, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, Dr. Richard Schultz. Okay, if you're familiar with him at all.
Yes,
okay.
I know.
He was actually one of my instructors, umpteenth years ago. And he made a good comment. He said, you should never be allergic or hypersensitive to good food. You should never be allergic or hypersensitive to it. So if you are, then we need to look into most likely your gut. And you probably have leaky gut, which is caused whole proteins, such as the proteins from peanuts, the proteins from strawberries, the proteins from tomatoes, and they leak through your gut. And your body gives a very understandable immune reaction. And now you're allergic or you're hypersensitive at the very least. You're sensitive to them. These are good foods. And I have never wavered from eating tomatoes or anything else of that nature. The healthier your body is, all I can tell you is this. And again, I don't know your situation if you are actually allergic or not. But the healthier a body is, the less likely these things are going to cause any problems with you. And it's just, I've had many patients who came to me who were allergic to walnuts or peanuts or things of that nature. All right. And after treating for allergies, getting that gut healed and doing a reboot with the gut, with your immune system, those allergies go away. It can take months and months and months. Dr. Christopher, two things for those that need to understand timing. Dr. Christopher made a wonderful saying. He said, because one of the most common questions Dr. Christopher would get asked is, how long will this take, this treatment? How long am I going to have to do this? And he said, well, and his common answer was, well, it took you years to get here. It's going to take you time to get through it. And then in med school, a doctor made kind of elaborate a little bit further on that. And I found this to be very true. For every year, and I'm talking chronic conditions, for every year that you've had a chronic condition, you're looking at a month of hard work. And I'm talking, serious detox, healing, repair. So it's not uncommon. And a lot of patients don't want to hear this, but it is true. It's not uncommon for a patient to come into the clinic and go, I've had this for 12 years, as an example. Well, you're looking at a year of hard work. And usually these are cancers, Lyme, some like autoimmune, like MS, things of that nature. But the difference is that you're working on healing. You're not working on covering it up. So I tell patients, just look at it this way. 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you're going to be able to look back and go, I used to have such and such condition. Instead of 10 years from now, I'm still having it.
Which is interesting too on that timing schedule, because if people said like they had cancer for 12 years, no, you discovered 12 years ago you had it, but how long did you actually truly have it? It's probably a lot longer than 12 years. And that's with every condition. It takes a while to show its ugly head.
Absolutely. I had this sweet little old lady come into the clinic. This was years ago. And she was well in her 80s. And she came in and she was presenting colon cancer. And she sat across my desk as we were doing the intake. And she said, yeah, I have colon cancer and that's what I'm here for. But other than that, my doctor says I'm healthy. And I said, no, you're not. And she said, no, this is all that I have. I said, cancer is a systemic failure of your immune system. Almost everybody is exposed to cancer sometime along the line. If you're immune, it's just a little errant cell. If your immune system is healthy, it'll take it out. But in the case of people who the cancer becomes established, well, obviously their immune system has failed. So I told her, I said, you've had problems for years. You just were not sensitive to what was going on with your body.
Well, I know this is questions for everyone else, but based on what you said, I got a good question for you. So I understand that the biggest elimination organ of the body is the skin, and skin cancer is so common today. And I used to think the number one cause of skin cancer, or the only cause, was get exposed to the sun. Well, I'm a raw food vegan, and I'm asking this question for all of those of you out there because you might have a similar situation. When I was a teenager, I got stabbed in the back with something, and I took it out, and it didn't heal the right way. Right. And then, years ago, I actually discovered I had basal cell carcinoma on my skin, and I used a black salve, and I got better. But somebody told me, well, your raw food diet's not working for you, because if it was, you can't develop cancer, even skin cancer. So okay. What would you say to something like that?
Oh, I've had that one many, many times. And skin cancer is actually one of the most interesting ones that we have come into the clinic. All humans on this planet pretty much have some genetic propensity, some genetic weakness in some part of their body. That's why some people get skin cancer, why some people get colon cancer or pancreatic, and the list goes on, or type 1 diabetes, the beta cells in their pancreas. The list goes on and on. That is an area of the body that is weak. All right. Dr. Christopher used to do this game with his students when he was no longer practicing but teaching. And he would take all the students, well, most of them, he'd take them and have them all sit on the floor, and they'd all sit in a circle with their feet touching. And in the middle of all those feet was one student standing. And all these feet are pressed up against this individual. So this student can't move. And they're all in a circle around him sitting there. And he would reach over and gently, he would push the student. And the student would start falling because they can't move their feet, and they start falling over, and they start falling onto one of the students. Well, that student would push him. And after a while, the student was literally spinning around the circle. Eventually, somebody doesn't catch him, and he falls over, or she falls over on the other student. What Dr. Christopher was trying to say is the one in the middle represented pharmaceuticals, chemicals, drugs, like I said, environmentals, heavy metals, part of your poor diet. But anyway, garbage. All right. All the students on the ground, on the floor, represented different body systems, different body parts. And the student, so all these other body parts are taking this trash and pushing it away. They're strong enough to be able to do that. But the student that didn't do it, they represent whatever was the pancreas or whatever. Oh, it couldn't push it away. It's the same with the skin cancer. And this is my view. It's been very successful for us. Some may not agree. I look at skin cancer that, yes, it's a cancer. But I look at skin cancer really as more of a symptom of cancer. I'll have a patient come to us, for example, many, many times with skin cancer, and they go, I need this removed. All right. I go, it can be removed. And 9 times out of 10, this will be their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th bout of skin cancer. They remove it and it pops up somewhere else. And I'll go, we can help you with that, but it's probably going to come back. I said, skin cancer is really indicative of cancer within you. And you are one, and I know this sounds weird, you're one of the blessed ones that you have a strong enough system that you tried to push it out your skin, all right? A limitative system. You tried to push it out instead of it settling in your colon or settling in your brain or your pancreas. You were successful enough that your body tried to push it out into your skin. And so I tell patients, you got 2 choices when you come to us with skin cancer. We'll help you remove it, okay, we'll help you remove it and treat it from the inside out so it never comes back again. And I've never, ever seen that fail when they wanted to treat it from the inside out. But I have a quick story. About that real quick, if you don't mind. This is not a patient of mine. This is Dr. Christopher's. So many people, and I'm sorry, I know, but this will probably cause a big hullabaloo, but the sun does not cause skin cancer. It does not cause skin cancer. What it may do is bring it to the surface, but it does not cause skin cancer. Dr. Christopher had a patient many years ago, and this was around Idaho, and it was a very rancher area, you know. And this one very heavy set rancher came in and he said, I got skin cancer and I don't want to do chemo and stuff like that. Because back in the 60s and 70s, chemo was even more dangerous than it is today. And Dr. Chris, he said, I want you to treat it. I heard you were successful. And Dr. Chris said, okay, where is it? It was the most unusual. And obviously because of his heavy weight and what he was doing was, like a lot of older men do, they wear their belts very, very hard, you know, tight around their waist, and it sweats a lot there. And so toxins gather. He had skin cancer literally wrapping around him under the belt line. So Dr. Christopher said, okay, we will go ahead and treat you, but I'm going to ask you to do something that you've probably never been asked before, because Dr. Christopher knew about ranchers in this area, just like we did up in Northern California. He said, when you go out working with your cattle, your ranch is pretty big. Some of them are as big as small states. He said, yeah. He said, are you usually out there on your own? Right on the horse? And the rancher said, yeah, I'm usually out there by myself. Well, he asked him to go ahead and be like Lady Godiva. He said, when you're out there and you're on the horse and you're riding the range, I need you to be butt naked, you know, right out there. In other words, let the sun get to the cancer. Yes, he treated him for the cancer, but he said, let the sun get on that cancer, because sun is very antiseptic. And it worked. It didn't get worse. It got better and it went away.
Sure. Also, maybe stop wearing suspenders. I mean, a belt, and stop wearing suspenders.
There you go. And
You know,
lose weight.
yeah, to lose weight. Yeah. So, okay. So we got a question, but everybody, the super chat is open if you want to get your question answered next. Somebody says, suddenly my allergies got worse. Cats, dander grass, pollen, etc. Any food or supplements to help? I cough and wheeze because of my allergies.
Okay. The term was suddenly. The word was suddenly. Does that mean it occurred after you went raw, or you made some changes, whatever the case may be? But plain and simple, whatever the cause for suddenly was, suddenly can occur because you moved into a new house that had mold in it. You know, it's meaning new to you, but it's an older home. Did you get exposed to something at work? Did you get exposed, like I said, to mold? Mold is an extremely common reason for a relatively sudden onset of allergies. And so you go, well, I'm not allergic to mold, it's to cat dander and pollen and stuff. But no, mold, once it attacks the system, it will actually help suppress the immune system. And all of a sudden you're now hypersensitive to so many other things. And maybe you had and again, I don't know your situation. Maybe you just recently had an antibiotic and that wiped out the microflora in your gut, causing a candida overgrowth, leaky gut. Now you're starting to leak proteins in your blood and you become allergic to all sorts of different things. What caused it, we would have to talk about and go, okay, again, was it exposure? Which exposure to mold is an extremely common thing here in the United States, but what can you do about it? I'm just going to be really blunt. I could tell you that there's some great natural holistic supplements or medicines you can use, and they do work well. For example, stinging nettle. We love using stinging nettle as a tincture because it's a very strong antihistamine. It works quite well. We also like to use something that Dr. Christopher has produced called Immucalm. And we like to use those two together. And Immucalm doesn't suppress the immune system, but it calms it and makes it stronger while they take the stinging nettle as an antihistamine. These things we have found work, all right, but they don't cure the allergies. They just make it to where you can get along and do fine. The end-all cure-all that I have seen for almost every allergy, the basic start of that, and I mean a real one, not some of the garbage they're putting out there, but it's a candida cleanse. A lot of people go, I don't have candida, I don't have yeast overgrowth. But MDs are actually they're not very good at treating candida, but they're slowly catching up. One woman, MD I know of, even she said 70% of her new patients who come through her door for the first time come in with candida because of the environment. We live in a toxic environment. even if you don't ever take an antibiotic. That's the first step. Get that immune system rebooted, because remember, 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And that's what you have to fix first. But again, these other two things I told you about help you cope, but they're not going to cure it.
Okay. The next question is, what raw vegan fruit and vegetables is best for prostate cancer? Should they also juice too, and which juice?
Okay. Wow, great question. These are these are awesome questions. We've worked with a lot of prostate cancer. I highly recommend, it's kind of the opposite of what a lot of people would think, that for prostate cancer, 99 times out of 100, their testosterone and their DHT is way out of whack, and that will cause inflammation in the prostate, which can eventually definitely aggravate and make things worse with prostate cancer. So in the MD community, one of the techniques that seems to be making some improvement is to, and I don't agree with to the totality of it, is to put men on estrogen, right? And to try to drop their testosterone down, because when estrogen is higher, the prostate cancer, it slows the growth and it seems to stunt it. But of course, now you have men growing breasts. They can't perform anymore because of their testosterone so low. So we have found that two things that work when you're talking about just herbs, there's a whole nother layer of treatment for this, but since it was just a basic question, blessed thistle is a tea that is good for men and for women, but one of the best, absolute best herbs we've used, and again, this is in and of itself is not going to cure prostate cancer, but it can possibly help, is red raspberry leaf tea. Absolutely astounding why most Americans are not drinking this red raspberry leaf tea. All right, inside of red raspberry leaf tea there are phytoestrogens, plant estrogens. And there was this big hullabaloo out there that little boys are turning gay because mommy gave them too much tofu when they were kids, which is a horrible article that came out. And the writer was disproved and she lost her career because she was paid by the dairy industry to write it. When you get phytoestrogens, plant estrogens in their natural source, like organic tofu, yams, red raspberry leaf tea, and you get them in their natural state, not as isolates, what happens is you are not a red raspberry, you're not a yam, you're not a soybean. You cannot use phytoestrogens as they are. But what happens is, let's say you're low on estrogen, and that counts for big girls and big boys and little boys. We all need estrogen, but as males, we need less, but we still need it. Okay, just like women need testosterone, but a lot less than we do. Right. So if you drink red raspberry leaf tea, for example, and you are in need of it, your liver has to be purposely directed to take those phytoestrogens, and it translates them into estriol, which is E3. The nickname is the baby estrogen. It's not for babies. It means it's the weakest of the three. It's the only one of the three that does not affect your breast receptors, your estrogen receptors in your breast. All right. So let's say you drink a big old glass of red raspberry leaf tea, and your wife drinks a big old glass, and she obviously needs more estrogen than you. And let's just say that glass, if you converted all of the phytoestrogen into estriol, it would be 100 units. All right, just to throwing a number out. She drinks it. She's going to make it until let's just say she needs 50. She will keep making it while she's drinking it. And then when she hits 50, her liver will stop making it. You might only need 5 or 10. And so you'll drink and drink and drink. And when your liver has produced that much, the body will tell it, no mas, no more, and you will stop making it. That I have seen has a beneficial effect on this. But what you also alluded to, I tell all of our cancer patients this now. Juice. Basically a multicolored solid in a glass that has and the more you do that, the higher the beneficial effect that I've seen on prostate cancer, or any cancer, but prostate cancer also.
Okay. So another question, completely different. Somebody says, I'm having chapped lips that don't heal. What would you recommend? I woke up with it one day for 5 months now and nothing works.
You talking about chapped lips?
Yes.
Oh, chapped lips. Interesting. Well, one of the most common reasons is dehydration. I know that sounds like an extremely simplistic answer, and you're probably saying, I drink plenty of fluids during the day. That might very well be. I'm giving a simplistic answer, and then we'll work our way up. So obviously, you need to hydrate more. Literally, when you pee, what color is your urine? Is it very dark yellow or pretty yellow or not? That tells you something about, it's great. You can go to like Rite Aid or any of those, pharmacies out there and over the counter and get these little strips that you can test your urine with, that test how hydrated you are, where your pH is. They're great tests to find out whether you're just plainly dehydrated. Now, that's not the only reason. You could be vitamin B deficient. That could be causing that. There can be a fungus that can be causing those things as well. You need to find out, first of all, how long have you had it? When did it start? But vitamin deficiencies will cause these type of things as well. Herpes probably is not what your issue, but a viral infection, which means there's an immune system problem. But usually it's hydration. And then somebody will say, I drink and drink, and it never is enough. One thing that has helped a lot of people stay hydrated is coconut water. Coconut water actually stays in the body longer than just plain simple water does. And that has seemed to help as well. So the question would be, when you use a lip balm that maybe has aloe vera, does it help? How long does that last? Are you out in the sun all day? Are you trying to be protective? What's the rest of your skin look like? Is it having problems also? But the most simplistic answer is vitamins and dehydration.
Okay. We only have time. We got time for some more questions. I just want to, I'm going to start to get selective with the questions, but if you definitely need your question answered, the super chat's open.
I'll get faster answers too.
Either way, so that's fine. So somebody says, I have very low testosterone. I am 51-year-old male. Low testosterone has caused my massive weight gain. How can I boost my testosterone naturally?
Okay, extremely common. Okay, first of all, I would want, I'm going to give you an answer, but normally I would go, what is your diet like? How much stress are you under? Because remember how I talked about stress with the adrenal fatigue. One of the hormones, I said that when you're under long-term stress is just one of the hormones your adrenal is supposed to put out is DHEA. All right. That's one that the adrenals put out. But when you go through a significant long-term chronic stress, the adrenals become exhausted. They stop or rapidly diminish the amount of DHEA you put out. Why is that important? DHEA, well, it's a hormone. I prefer to call it more of a parent or protohormone. From DHEA, it makes other hormones. One of those is testosterone. So many, many, many times I'll have a male patient come in, they're very low on testosterone. And we find out they've had extensive stress in their life. Okay, the overweightness actually leads to it, causes insulin resistance, cause other issues with that. I would first want to say, how are you managing your stress? Are you sleeping well? Are you coping well? Things of that nature. How is your prostate? Question would be, how many times at night do you have to get up to go pee? All right. You shouldn't, unless you drink a whole lot of water every day and you drink it up until bedtime, you really shouldn't have to ever get up at night to go pee. But men who get very low on testosterone end up having to pee a lot at night. Why? Through most of your life, you produce this level of testosterone and about this level of DHT. DHT is testosterone, a type of it, but it's 10 times stronger. And you think, oh, that's great, but it's really not. But as they age, it starts doing this. When the DHT gets too high, that's where we start seeing male pattern baldness. The prostate starts enlarging. So first of all, deal with your stress. That'd be one thing. Deal with your diet. Something else there's several other things that helps raise testosterone. One is make sure you get more than 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. That actually helps increase. And another thing that's absolutely fascinating, and I have seen this work time and time again, depending on your reason for your low testosterone, is eat a lot or juice a lot, whatever the case may be, or both, of cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, all these things. They actually there's components within it that gets converted into testosterone in both men and women. So I've seen those types of things work before. Oh, and the other thing is, so plenty of sleep, watch your diet, help lose weight, things of that nature, sleep. Okay, lots of cruciferous vegetables. And the other thing that actually will help raise testosterone, all right, over the long haul, is start exercising, resistance exercising, weightlifting, things of that nature. When the body detects you doing that, it goes, oh, you're trying to make muscle. Well, in order to do that, I got to make more testosterone. Okay, and then please make sure that you're not one of those people, because I had a patient like this, that years ago you didn't take steroids, you didn't take testosterone to bulk up, because that will literally shrink your testicles and you'll stop making it. We had to treat patients for that issue. But hopefully that helps. It does work. I've seen it work many, many times.
Okay, somebody says, could you suggest a protocol for MGUS, a precursor to myeloma? I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, we're talking about multiple myeloma. Okay. Horrible disease, absolutely horrible disease. I've treated it a bit. I believe one of my patients is watching this right now with it. I'm very proud of her. She's done very, very well. Remember how I said earlier that just about every human has some genetic propensity, some genetic weakness towards something. Well, in that case, maybe it's yours. Like others have a BRCA gene issue and they go, oh, my mom had breast cancer. I've got this gene issue. I'm almost guaranteed to have breast cancer. So let's go ahead and cut healthy breast off just to make sure. All right. Just because you have the precursor, just because you have these genetic issues doesn't mean you'll ever get it. You almost guaranteed will get it. If you live like mom and dad and grandmom and grandpop did, you will live like it. But if you can change your diet, change your lifestyle, create either a low stress environment, because that has a high effect on that particular condition, stress, or find better ways to cope with it. One of the most important things I ask a lot of patients, because almost every one of them is stressed, is this. I'll go, you don't have to tell me what it is, what you do, but do you do it once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year? Never. How often, and this is a horrible habit with Americans, how often do you do something for you? I'm not saying be selfish, doesn't mean you can't do with others, but how often do you do something for you that allows you to have pleasure, to decompress, to basically relax and cope? And so often when I ask that question, their eyes just kind of glaze over and go, I don't remember the last time I did anything for myself. And I get it, I absolutely get it, but there's really no excuse for that. If you're a caregiver and you keep that up, well, then you're not going to end up being a very good caregiver or whatever, or you care for family or whatever. You have to take care of yourself.
Exactly. All right, another question. Any reason why a raw foodist who has a flat stomach would get a little pudge or pouch after eating a meal such as a salad with healthy fats, mainly a large salad?
Okay. Okay, well, I'm assuming that it's a very temporary situation. A lot of raw foodists are slim. People would say, oh, they're underweight, but underweight is only if you feel bad and you can't sleep well and you don't have lots of energy. But if you're plus in all those areas, some people are very slim and they'll show what food they eat. But here's an important one, and I've had this happen with so many patients. They'll come in and they'll go, oh, I tried being a raw foodist, or I tried just being a vegan. And they'll go, I got sick, it didn't work. Oh, the gas and the bloating was absolutely horrendous, afterwards. All right. And I'll go, well, you went before you fixed your gut. Remember how I talked about that woman MD that even she found that 70% of all Americans have candida? That's another term would be dysbiosis, an imbalance of microflora. You are supposed to have about 1,400 different strains of microflora in your gut. Okay, may be billions of them, but 1,400 different kinds. Each kind has a different job to do. This one breaks down this protein or this or gluten or this carb. Another subset actually makes vitamin B12. That's why healthy raw vegans don't need vitamin B12. I've never taken it in my life. All right. But if your gut's imbalanced and you switch to a raw food diet, but you didn't get the microflora back to where it's supposed to be, and it's not just taking probiotics, you've got to clean the gut out with a candida cleanse. Then you start doing a lot of different fermented foods and probiotics. Once that happens, you notice that the little pouch and little bloating completely goes away.
Okay. We have a super chat question. Do you have any advice for migraine sufferers? So basically, what are some stops to stop getting migraines, or just any advice for migraine sufferers?
Okay, all right. I've had a lot of patients. They're usually younger people, teens to their 20s, early 30s. I had a girlfriend many, many years ago, and this was before I met my wife, and she constantly had migraines. I literally, and you may be one of those that's already done that, but I literally had her change her diet. She was a huge, big, McDonald's person and Burger King. She stopped those and they went away. What that says is that a lot of people that get migraines, and I'm talking true migraines, not just a headache, but true migraines, there is a high probability that there is some kind of food sensitivity that you have not addressed yet. There can be mold issues. There can still be candida issues like that. There's a lot of people use CBD and it works well for them, but that's, again, not curing the problem. Every single migraine patient I've ever had, when they clean the body out and change their diet, the migraines went away. Now, you go, well, I did change my diet, but did you fix the colon first before you did that? The probability is extremely low that you did. And therefore, you're going to continue to have the migraines. But always look at, there's a great test, and I'm not going to take the full time on the show to talk about it, but you can go look it up. There is such a thing as allergies, but there's also such a thing as food sensitivities when it doesn't really rise to the level of allergy. Please go online if you want and look at something called the pulse, like your pulse, the pulse test. Go look it up if you would. It's a very simple test. It takes about 3 days to perform. And you basically work your way through foods. Very, very often you're going to find some food that causes a positive reaction in the pulse test. That might very well be a food that's causing the migraines.
Okay. And we can get, if anybody wants to get the doctor on for extensive one-on-one on that particular question, just put your comments below, because we could do more extensive, but because of the amount of questions, we have to go more quicker and be brief. But I do recommend people contact Doc, his contact information below, and work with him one-on-one, and you'd be amazed how quickly things you've been struggling with for years start to improve. So another question is from Nicole, and she says, in our last video, we talked about Lyme's, and you mentioned other conditions with similar symptomology. What would you advise for ME/CFS, which seems like it could be related to what you said?
Absolutely. This is a tough one because you have to rely on a doctor to be willing to do this. And okay, I'm going to caveat that. I'm going to show you something. Well, I think actually, Paul, I think you listed where to get the test done. Did you not in the previous?
Yes,
video?
I did. They're on.
Okay,
Yep.
so good. I can just talk about that. As I mentioned in the last video about Lyme, the biggest hindrance, and this is actually the biggest hindrance to being cured of Lyme, is not the Lyme itself, but finding a doctor who is willing to at least accept the possibility that you may have Lyme. All right. And this becomes a vast frustration for patients. They'll come to me and they'll go, I know I have it. I've got all the symptoms, but my other doctor refuses to test me. All right. And so we'll run the tests. And not every time. I've had times when, true enough, they truly came back negative from the test. But very often we are surprised to come up with a positive. It's like, okay, you don't have MS, you don't have lupus, or yada, yada, yada. You have Lyme. So the problem is finding a doctor that will help you. Now, having said that, I know that Paul put a couple of links in there on where you can go get these. You can pay for the test yourself, because unfortunately, insurance rarely does pay for these tests anyway. It's pretty rare that they do. The problem is here is, if you go get the test done yourself, and I'm not saying this is the reason to come to me, but maybe find somebody locally that you can talk to. You have to be careful how you interpret those tests, but at least you can get the tests done and then go show them to somebody who is knowledgeable about how to read those tests. But that's one of the greatest hindrances. You need to find somebody who will work with you hand in hand and go, okay, I support the fact that you may or may not have Lyme. Let's go find out and let's see if you do. And there you go.
Okay. So another question is, and we'll do another Q&A because we're getting so many questions. So
Sure.
can you
Sure.
eat,
Love to.
this is one of my questions I address all the time. Can you eat too much fruit? What's your opinion about that?
Okay. Okay. A little bit qualified answer there. Okay. And again, this may cause a big hullabaloo, but this is what I believe. I believe that truly humans are fruitarians. I believe in a, and I'm going to qualify that, in a perfect world, I believe that we are fruitarians. And I've seen people now, unfortunately, these are people who can live in the tropics. They can live where there's not so much a toxic environment, and they do quite well. I believe that if you eat well-balanced, this is my belief, because this is how I live. If you eat a very well-balanced raw diet, I believe that you can eat as much fruit as you want. There's the book, the 80-10-10 diet, all right, where he mentions, Graham, he mentions extensive amount of fruit, and I've eaten extensive amount of fruit, never caused me problems. But again, we have that little caveat. Okay, one, make sure they're try to be as organic and GMO free as you can, obviously. Always stay away from fruits. You know how they have a little label on there and it'll say a five-digit number starting with a 9, cool beans. All right. Or a 4-digit number that starts with a 4. Yeah, it's conventional. Just make sure you wash it well. But always stay away from fruits and vegetables that are a 5-digit number that starts with an 8. That is modified. Stay away from it. I have seen patients who could eat fruit all day long and then they eat a modified one and get sick. All right. You're literally taking in pesticide genes and things of that nature. And I've seen this actually happen. But besides that, before you go eating a diet high in fruit, make sure you get, again, I know this is repetitive, get that gut in shape, get the candida out of it. Otherwise, as healthy as fruit is, and don't believe when they say fruit doesn't feed candida, because it does. Fruit is extremely healthy for you, but if you have a candida overgrowth, you are going to feed the candida. All right, get rid of the gut issue. Eat the healthy fruits and vegetables. Well balanced. I've never seen a problem with it.
Okay. So I'm just having a great time, and I'm biting my tongue not to answer these questions because I'm leaving it up to you, but thank you.
It's all
Okay.
good. All good.
So a dear friend of mine suffers and has been diagnosed with MS, and she has a question. She says she was diagnosed with MS in 2016, and her mobility is very challenged now. Walking is basically impossible now. What would your initial recommendation be? And I'll say what else she says here. She says she's a use. Well, that doesn't matter. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. What would you say to her?
Okay. Okay. Let's just say someone comes in, and this has happened many times before. Somebody comes in, their initial diagnosis is MS. Please remember, MS is not a hard and fast, tried and true diagnosis. We do clinical observation, we run some blood work, we do brain scans, and MS is the last thing left. Well, it couldn't be this, it couldn't be that, couldn't be this. Well, I guess all that's left is MS. It's a very poor diagnosis, okay? Because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, MS is Lyme, and it's been misdiagnosed. You go, oh, well, they had the brain scan, and oh, there were the lesions right where they were supposed to be. Long-term chronic extensive Lyme causes the very same lesions. We've seen this and treated for it many times. But I'm going to give you my pat answer for all patients that come in with chronic diseases. In this case, autoimmune. Okay, so let's say this about autoimmune real quickly. In the standard conventional community, autoimmune to them means the immune system has gone crazy. So what do? They cut out your thymus gland, they put you on Imuran, they put it on this to suppress the immune system. Autoimmune is not the immune system going crazy. The immune system is working perfect. What happened is, remember how, again, we talked about most everyone has this genetic weakness predisposition. All right. So let's talk about like MS, the lining, of the outer insulation of your nerves. Okay. Well, your immune system is attacking it. In every single autoimmune condition, I don't care what name you give it, what they want to call it. Okay. again, let's go back to the hand. My hand is a cell. Every cell in your body has this little flag on it. It's a little protein marker, but it's a little flag. And that little flag is telling the immune system, it's me, don't eat me. In other words, don't destroy self. But remember how one of those students let the trash fall on them, so to speak, and that's their weak part? Well, in true MS, that cell was not able to push it off. And so that little flag is damaged. And the immune, even though that cell may still be doing its job, it's damaged. And the immune system goes, oh, that's not me. And it starts taking them out. It's kind of like with the beta cells on your pancreas. Same thing. The immune system takes out 8% of them. You have type 1 diabetes. So we go, your immune system's working perfect. Let's regrow those cells with the little flag on it. Now, putting aside that it's highly likely could be Lyme, let's just talk about true MS. The first thing every single one of my chronic patients has to do, or I will not treat them. And I'm not talking about boo-boo toes or colds or flus. Chronic, they all must first go through an 18-day Candida cleanse. I don't care. I just don't care if they say, oh, I've been through Candida cleanses 10 times, because usually they don't work, the ones that they do. I go, everyone has to go through the 18-day cleanse, which is really a true and wonderful immune reboot. And then we start treating for the actual condition. And again, diet is a huge part of it. But you asked what the initial part was. If you're not already getting tested for Lyme properly, is the Candida cleanse. Get that done first. Because again, I'm sorry, real quickly, when I treat you, I want to make sure that your immune system is supporting me. And 99 times out of 100, someone comes into the clinic, their immune system is not supporting. Candida cleanse at least means, okay, now we're working together, on a cellular level. Sorry about that. Good.
No, great. Okay. So now somebody's asking about the Candida. Tell us a little about the Candida cleanse that you have. Can they order from your site? Is it different than other cleanses out there? I mean, so tell us a little about your Candida cleanse.
Okay, California, I'm just going to say this, and then I'll actually try to give you a general answer. California law says, as the doctor here in the state, I cannot give actual specific medical advice unless you're a patient of mine. Having said that, I can tell you that the paperwork can be made available to those who want to see it. All right. Actually, I did not develop this. This was developed by Dr. Christopher and his son, David Christopher, and with the School of Natural Healing. They initially developed this. It's in 4 steps. The first 3 steps are 18 days, and it is a detox. It is a die-off of Candida. And if yours Candida is bad enough, you're going to feel it, but we teach you how to get through it, the tricks and things. It's a special diet. We have one just for raw vegans as well as vegans, because it has to be a vegan diet for low inflammatory, low sugar and alcohol. There are specific medicines, herbal medicines that you take with it. So if you're not a patient of mine, you can get the paperwork. I just can't advise you after that.
Okay.
The paperwork is public domain.
Okay. So you're going to leave it at that?
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely contact, let me get back here. Definitely contact from the website and get in touch with the doctor for that. All right. So let's take 2 more questions here, and I'm going to try to pick which ones. So many great questions. Please post them below, and maybe we'll do some episodes on these questions. And thank you all for your questions. Well, let's go back to my friend who had that question about the MS. She says she's been tested for Lyme several times and had a SPECT brain scan and apparently Lyme was ruled out, but she puts a question mark. Now, I don't know if she had the 2 specific tests that were listed that you told us about last time.
Exactly. Okay. In this case, I don't know, but I can tell you that almost without fail, it's a rare occurrence that it otherwise, but almost without fail, a patient will come in and say, oh, I got tested for Lyme and it was the Western blot reflex test. Worthless test, like I said in the previous video, because insurance companies pay for that, because even with physicians' rates, it's only about $60. So the insurance will pay for that. Okay, but it's a worthless test. It's almost always negative, and very often those are false negatives. I've personally, I think in my whole career, I've seen 1 positive come out of that, whereas the other tests showed definitively there was Lyme disease. So unfortunately, I don't know this situation, but most of the time they got the wrong test, and the doctor, not being, and I'm not trying to be mean, but was not Lyme literate, didn't order the right test, or when the tests came in and maybe they ordered the right test, they didn't know how to read them. Because unfortunately, the CDC has set up a requirement saying this is what it takes to meet Lyme, and they are wrong. Even Dr. Burrascano said that what the CDC's specifications are completely inaccurate, but unfortunately, most non-Lyme literate doctors, even if they run the right test, they'll go, oh, it doesn't meet the qualifications. You don't have Lyme. When very often I will look at that test and go, yes, you do. They did not set up the right guidelines. So either the test was misread, or they ran the wrong one, or maybe you truly don't have Lyme and you may be one of those that actually has MS.
Okay, and if you're working directly with them, you can determine that quite
yes.
quickly if it's true MS or if it's Lyme, and also even if it's MS, you work with people on how to.
Oh gosh, we had a patient years and years ago, and she came in and she was 36 years old. She was walking on a cane. She already was having the vision and the swallowing issues and such like that. And we started treating her, and within about a month, she was off the cane. Now, she still had problems. She was on the program for about a year. Okay, but again, she immediately started noticing within about a month or two, month and a half, the vision and the swallowing problems were gone. By the time we were done with her, it was a great blessing because she had been living with her parents. She had been able to move out of her house, got a job, got her own house, and got her own home. And she did something I highly disapproved of, but I was happy for her. She was able to wear high heels. Not that I agree with them, but I was happy for her that she was able to do that. But it requires, these conditions require a serious, and I'm not talking financial because I don't think we're very expensive when it comes to that. And there are other doctors that are good too about this. It requires, as I said before, you have to own it. You have to take responsibility for your own healing. You know, as I said before, truly in a lot of ways, no doctor on this earth, myself or anyone else, is a healer. The only true healer is you, and whatever it is that you believe in. You know, we're here as guideposts, teachers, because that's what doctor originally meant, was a teacher. We're here to teach you and help you, but you're the healer in the long run.
Great. All right. Last question of the night, and everybody, Dr. Spindelilus' contact information is below the video. Please see the other 2 interviews I did with him last week and the week before on this channel, and we'll have him back as a future guest. So please post your comments or questions below. It's been great having you, Doc. So thank you. So the last question tonight is, my brother has had a lot of nerve damage and pain consistently. Tried several times to get him to change his diet. Just plain vegetables. Can nerve damage be cured with consistent juicing?
It depends on the reason for the nerve damage. All right. Nerve damage can be viral. It can be bacterial. It can be due to trauma. It can be due to diabetes. There's a whole wide range of things. Can juicing help? Absolutely. I've seen it help, but it's usually the only way I've ever seen it actually perform a total cure is basically juicing like Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, you know, where you do nothing but juice for 60 days, months, whatever it is. And it's actually, if you do it right, it's very healthy. I've had patients do it, seen great success with it. But if they're not eating well, but they are juicing, it's not going to be enough to do it.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Juicing and eating unhealthy is counterproductive. It's
like ripping the Band-Aid off.
Now, as you speak into those 60 days on juices, or any amount of days on juices, you and I were talking about the juicing in general. It's very difficult to do with the standard juices out there, but with the Nama J2 juicer that you and I have, wow, It makes a world of a difference.
Well, you made the comment you can walk away, and you can.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Doc, thank you so much for your time tonight. If you all want to see this again, another one, let us know, and we'll have him back again.
I'm happy to.
Doc, thank you so much for your time, everybody. His contact information below. He does have a book out as well. That's below as well in the links. So please do contact him, and we'll have you back, and just keep up the great work you're doing. And I want to let everybody know as well that I will do some Q&As too with other guests, but also with myself. Because every question I was asked here, I have a lot to say. I was biting my tongue, but I want to give the guest time to answer these questions. But I will be doing these, so please subscribe and watch out for that coming in the near future, the Q&As that I do. And Doc, thank you again for joining us tonight. And everybody have a great night. Thank you all for your super chats. Have a blessed night, and thank you.
Thank you.